Hello, in this brief video, we're going to talk about the need for data validation. And when you talk about the differences between, let's say, Microsoft Excel versus Microsoft Access, you're going to see that one of the things that makes Access more powerful is the ability to have rules, the ability to put in rules and protections that prevent the entering of bad data. I want to show before we go into the database itself, I want to put on screen a sample of an Excel spreadsheet. And this is loosely based, after the data's changed, but this is loosely based on a client project that I saw once. And it was, the problem, obviously this data is fake, but the problems are similar. So the reason there are so many mistakes here, you see them highlighted. You have a city like Coeur d'Alene. Now, it's difficult to spell for people who are not in the area, but notice it's spelled multiple different ways. Here, Spokane was in this part of the Washington was in the city, and the zip code went in the state. And you see there's a lot of similar type things in here. Portland has the comma. Oregon has ORE instead of the abbreviation OR. Here's Idaho's ID period. Here's it as capital ID with the zip code. Here, I mean, this is an absolute mess. Now, what causes this type? Oh, yeah, and then you got the city and the address. I mean, what causes or what leads to situations like this? Let's open up an Excel spreadsheet, just a blank workbook here, and let's start just putting in some information here. If I want this column to be numbers, or, let's say so I can set this data type to number. That's fine. 15, 16, 17. But what happens if I put a word in here, or a bunch of letters? It accepts it. I can type letters even though the column says numbers. There's no enforcement going on there. If this is a column of zip codes, well, that's not a zip code. That's not a zip code. That's not a zip code. Now, of course, there's no zip code data type in here, but you get the point. I mean, this would be general or text. So bottom line is, yeah, you can set certain types, and of course you can through data rules. You can have data validation, of course, and Excel does have it. I can, if I wanted to restrict this column, for example, to states. Well, yeah, I mean, I could. Well, there's no. If I want to limit it to a state, a U.S. state or U.S. state and Canadian province, whatever. Well, there's no way for me to do. Of course, I could do it with a list. And I could just put in another column, I could put a list of states and put that source in here. So there is some data control in Excel. But when you have a situation like this, it's because whatever input system, whether it's in Excel or even possibly in Access, as we'll see in a moment, was too permissive, and it allowed mistakes. So people are going to, when you're entering a lot of data, any data or a lot of data, people are going to make mistakes. Maybe this is a little exaggerated. Of course, this is probably not the same person and making all these entries. Different people are going to make different types of mistakes. And, this might not have been, they might not have been entering into the spreadsheet. They might have entered these one at a time on a form. And so, but, what you want, when we talk about data validation, we want to eliminate as many of these errors as possible. When I had to when I had to take data like this and put it into an Access database and eventually an SQL Server database, I think half the time on that project was just cleaning up things like this, making sure things were in the right columns. Dates are particularly bad because you could put you could put in a date column, let's say March 9th. Let's say I take 3022 instead of 2022, or I mean type 2022, but I type 2922, right? And even if this is a data type, Excel will still. Oh, I did make it a data type. It happened to. Excel will still accept it. And perhaps Access will accept it too. A more robust system like SQL Server will not accept this. You try to import this into SQL Server, it's going to give you all sorts of errors. And if you got a table with 10,000 entries in it, you got to go back and look for all the malformed dates. You get the idea. It wastes time, it wastes money, and just causes a bunch of headaches. So what I'm going to talk about here is how can we avoid things like that. Now, again, you see there are ways to avoid it in Excel, and Excel certainly has its place for simple spreadsheets. You know, it's good for certain things, like if you want to do quick calculations on data. Certainly there are things that Excel excels at. But let's talk about what Access excels at. So we're going to minimize this again, and let's go through two forms. And this is a database. By the way, I do have a list of states here because, and you'll see why we have this, a table with just states in it, and you'll see why we have this in a few minutes. But let's take a look at a typical form that we might use to enter new customers or clients or vendors or whatever. Okay, so if we want to, so you can see, you know, we've had some things entered here. And it looks at first glance like all the data is good. Oh no, I saw a 4-digit zip code there. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, things like that can happen. And oh yeah, okay, so we got a maybe that's supposed to be 5 by 4, I guess. Anyway, date of birth. Now, the date data type is okay, sort of. I mean, we do have the calendar here, so that helps. So if I put date of birth, okay, you know, because it's all right, because in the table, it is a date data type. So okay, so that offers some protection. What's not protected here is the state. My finger slips on the keyboard. Enter VX instead of VA. State is pretty much city is pretty much open text anyway. If you want to enter a new, by the way, the ID is auto entered in this. So yeah, so that's automatically supplied. I couldn't change that if I wanted to, but so I know that's not Israeltown. Anyway, but let's see if I can. I know I can enter a bad zip code. I could enter a bad state. Let's say I get his real state of Kentucky or Illinois. Okay, we did restrict this to the two characters, KT, right? But okay, so what I'm driving at is we can make some very bad decisions here. I could put Lincoln, Kentucky here. I can't put a zip code here; it won't let me. So we have that much. But again, you see how this can. And if I can put, by the way, I can also put in a birthday just because we have the format of a date. I think his real birth date 1821. Yeah, maybe that we would accept that. Maybe we get the 1 and 8 mixed up. I think it was 1821, somewhere on there. See, it took it, even though, yeah, I guess the year 8121 is technically valid, but realistically, you know, we're not going to have anything like that. Okay, so let's look at an alternate form that changes things a little bit. Now, the name hasn't really changed. The city hasn't really changed. There's not much we can do with that. But if I try to put, now VS is still there because I entered it that way. I changed it that way on the other form. Both forms are pulling from the same data. So it's VS right now. But if I tried to put in a non-existent state, I don't know what BY is. It won't let me. In fact, this is where the list of states comes in, and you could do this with Excel, of course. I mean, you could put this list in another worksheet or another column, and then put the data validation. So Excel has some data validation. It's nowhere near as robust as you can put in Access, because Access you can program things to and use some more powerful tools. Oh, it's not going to let me out of that until I correct it. All right, now for zip code, Notice we have an input mask here now. So it's going to make sure if I just we could put a bad zip code in before. If I just say 4, not appropriate, it won't let me do that. I think I can enter only the 4 digits. It will take that. The last 4 are optional, and you can, and we have it set up. In fact, I'll show you. We have an input mask. 0 means mandatory. This is the format. 0 means a mandatory digit. 9 means an optional digit. And we could set it up so that all 9 digits are required if we wanted to. The state is, well, I won't go into all the technical details here, but it's a query. Basically, the state, it's a drop down, and it's pulling its potential values from this other table, from a table of states. So that enforces. And again, you can put in limits for if you're worried that someone's going to put in, a first name of 200 characters, you can limit that. That would be more in the table than in the form. But data validation, let me put that screenshot up again. Now, what do we do about the cities? You have cities spelled differently. That's a little trickier. What you can do, there are some things we could do about the city. One thing is we could make this a drop-down box. So let's go ahead and make this a drop. Now, obviously, we can't have every city in the country, or if it's international, every city in the world in a table that I can pull this from. That's not realistic. Although, there are certainly places on the internet where you can download a zip code to city table, and you can enter a zip code, and it automatically will populate the city. So that's one way of doing it. It's a little unwieldy, but it works. Now, what can I use to populate this? Because I can't reasonably have every possible city exist in this dropdown. In fact, right now there's nothing because I don't have it tied to anything. Let's get this city out of here. All right. So what can we do? Well, one possibility is I can make this. That's not what I meant. I can go ahead and in data, we want to make this. We want to hook this up to city first of all. This just hooks it up to the city in the table, binds it to the city. But in terms of the text box, the dropdown itself, what is going to be the source for this dropdown? Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We can't list every possible city, but we'll put a compromise that will at least mostly protect from bad data. And that's what we're going to do is we're going to populate this with every city that already exists in the database. Now, of course, you could enter a city that's new. We'll get to that in a moment. And let's go ahead and sort this by ascending. Now, of course, we could also, if we really wanted to be fancy with this, we could have a table of cities and states so that you don't enter a city that doesn't exist in the state you're entering. I think that's probably a little bit overkill, and certainly we're not going to bother with that in this demo. But now, we're going to do one more thing. See, with the state, limit to list, yes. You have to select a state in that list. Now, with city, we can't really do that. Oh, and actually, it is defaulting to no. All right, so if we're going to put a new person in this database, at least I can select. So if I start typing Coeur d'Alene, I don't know how to spell it, but I start typing COE. See, it's gonna pick that for me. So it's gonna kind of protect me from myself, so I don't make some spelling error. All right. So, and now of course we have to pick a state. So that's one thing we can do. Date of birth. Again, you could. Let's see what we could do with date of birth. Well, we could put in a validation rule. So we could say greater than or equal to 1, what do you think, 1900? And less than or equal to, date, the current date, right? And so, I can put something 3/1/2022, and it will take it. If I try to put something, let's see, January 5th, 1850. See, now it won't take that, right? I can't put any wild dates in there. The upper limit is whatever today's date is. Just simply a date of birth can't be in the future. So 2024, again, it will reject that. So those are some other things you could do to kind of lock this down. Oh, better correct this. Okay, so nothing is going to be really perfect. You might, you might have international addresses here, in which case it's not always going to be 2 digits, two characters. If it's Canada, you can include the Canadian provinces here. Now, if you're going to Europe, they're not going to have states. They're going to have other, so you have to get a little fancier and a little more flexible, depending on what your purpose is. But what I want to press from this demo is that data validation, I mean, if you can protect as much as possible bad data from being entered, and this is one of the powerful things that Access will give you, even above and beyond Excel, if you can prevent, at least the more bad data you can prevent, the less headache things are going to be later on. Okay, so thanks a lot for watching. I hope this was helpful. Please remember to like and subscribe. Any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I love receiving questions, and I'll see you in the next video.